Now here's actually a little random thing I just remembered. So I'm gonna paint a little picture of the scene. Alright. It was the late 90s at some business place, and there was a magazine table, and I was reading the magazine, and I think it was just one of those extremely generic lifestyle magazines. You know what I'm talking about. The one that is kind of aimed more towards women and is really generic. So I read an article that didn't have that many photos. I can't really remember the photos except they were generic too, and I could probably tell you without having to look back. They were all just trannies with duping delight posing in weird costumes. And what it was about was some terrifying nightmare horror story about a quote-unquote woman who was breastfeeding, but she had a problem that was apparently, the article said this. The problem was so incredibly rare, it didn't have a name. It literally said that. So rare it didn't have a name. Although I'm pretty sure it was some really obscure, weird tranny name that you couldn't find if you looked it up, probably. Doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. And as the story went, her boobs were producing so much milk that her skin was literally ripping. And I was really freaked out when I read that. Oh yeah, I think it said something about the featured quote-unquote woman getting breast reduction surgery because that's logical, right? I mean, logically, you know. Oh man. No wonder they make fun of us for being dumb if we believe this crap. Anyway, so several years later, I remembered that article because it was so creepy. Oh yeah, I was with some friends and we were talking about terrifying off-the-wall crap we read. And I brought up that story, what I read, and they were all like, ooh, what's the name of the disorder? Go on, go on. And all I could say was, well, I don't recall it saying, and it was just some magazine story I read a long time ago, and there's just no details, because, well, now I understand why. I mean, I honestly really did make a very good effort at the time to try and find information about what I read. I couldn't find anything. Nothing. Because those magazines, especially before the internet usage was so commonplace, they would just make up any old crap and not even proofread it. Like I've mentioned before, at the Daily Mail, there is going to be a typo in every single article because they do not give enough of a crap to double check it. They just vomit onto the keyboard and publish it. So always remember that. And this also ties into that tetrachromat thing where I read a story that I thought was extremely interesting at the time about a quote-unquote woman with grinning duping delight, and it said that she had a colorblind quote-unquote father, a Rex dad, and a quote-unquote colorblind son, a Rex son. The implication of the way it was phrased was, first she was probably a normal vision woman that was really a strat, and then after giving birth to a quote-unquote son who was colorblind, then all of a sudden she could see a brand new color, so she was seeing 4 colors. Guess what the 4th color was? You'll never guess. It was orange. Shock! So, I was fascinated when I read that, and this is all ages ago, and I really looked all over for information on this particular person at the time. I found absolutely nothing. It's like if a person you read about in any news rag or newspaper will catch your interest and you'd like to go, I would like to know more about this person, and it doesn't matter how hard you look and how hard you sniff around and how many detectives you hire, you're never going to find information on that person because it's not a real person. It's some tranny wearing a rubber mask or something like that with grinning duping delight and a story that doesn't make sense. And also, just very related, I was also very interested in the topic of Dolly the sheep in the 2000s, and I really wanted to find more information on Dolly the sheep. The only thing I learned was that in those just fake news articles when they're talking about an amazing glow-in-the-dark pig, especially on the news, on the TV, they're just gonna go, well, we're talking about pigs, so as we talk about the amazing glow-in-the-dark one-of-a-kind pig that nobody has ever seen, we're just going to show footage of ordinary random pigs that have nothing special about them, and it's just, everything on the news is fake. If on a slow day they will make, remember Stephanie, the quote-unquote 45-year-old Martin that lives as a little girl? That was actually just some BDSM humiliation thing that made it to TV because that Stephanie guy who is a Martin probably did not have 6 kids, and he was just humiliating himself on TV because he liked doing that, and the TV was like, let's pretend he's serious, let's pretend he's really hardcore about living as a little girl. Like, they were just giving the guy his fantasy of being humiliated and everyone laughing at him. That was what the guy wanted. He wanted to be a little girl so people would make fun of him. It was something he was into. He was into humiliation, not being a little girl. And what else? I'm remembering some other news thing that is just another good reason why you should never believe the news. Oh, okay. Now, this was some local news in a small city, and there was some just laughable news story about how a couple of purebred special puppies of whatever sort got kidnapped, and then some magical 10-year-old Martin looked at the footage and identified the dog napper, and then he got $100. Like, that is literally the story. No, that was on TV. That was a story. It literally ended with him getting $100 for looking at the footage. Things like that are just canned. That kid's parents paid for that. I don't know what they shelled out, but I'm pretty sure it's more than just a measly $100. But it's an example. The news is fake. It's all audio, video. You just look at any really stupid commercial selling pure garbage with the magic of Photoshop and After Effects, and look at the, I'm gonna bring up the Mandela effect thing, but I really think that the whole, Nelson Mandela died in prison was a hiccup in the narrative, because, I remember when Osama bin Laden died the first time, there was a little tiny news ticker like, oh, by the way, just so you know, Osama bin Laden died, okay, back to sports. And then much later they say, okay, he died for real, Osama bin Laden's dead, and I was like, I recall him already dying on the news. It's a hiccup in the narrative. You don't need to enter an alternate timeline, they just screw up the story and they don't care. Quit making a big deal out of a little thing. They're just screwing it up and they don't care. Quit believing the news. It's all fake. The takeaway is, don't believe a word. None of it. All fake. Have a great day. Don't believe the news.